Hey guys, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools Q&A edition, where we answer questions from the general public about tools, the trades, tool-related activities, DIY, and more. So stay tuned and let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first question is from William. William asks, what's the difference between an electric generator and a gas generator? Okay, William, an electric generator uses power from the grid, meaning that you can plug it into a wall outlet, or it may have solar panels to charge batteries inside of it that provide the power for the generator. Now, gas generators, they run on gasoline, which is the fuel for the loud motor or engine that you hear when it's running. So right off the bat, you can see the problems created by gas generators. Number one, you need gas, an already flammable or combustible material, right? Number two, it's loud. How many of you can deny the noise pollution gas generators create? Number three, you have the whole environmental impact issue. You got fossil fuel extraction and consumption and its direct relationship to the so-called global warming issue. And number four, you got the fumes emitted by gas generators, and that's very dangerous, right? Think of carbon monoxide poisoning, not to mention all the heat produced as well. So all of these still contribute to the so-called global warming issue as well, okay? But even on a smaller scale, the heat produced from some of the parts can burn you if you're not careful. Now, electric generators produce no fumes, so they have a much cleaner environmental footprint than gas generators. They also require less maintenance than gas generators because they have less moving parts. This means they tend to have a longer lifespan than gas gens do. Now, one of the biggest benefits and selling points of electric generators is that there is no noise pollution. They don't make any noise, if any. But the downside is that if it uses solar panels, it can take a while to charge the batteries. And if it uses a wall outlet, you better be around a wall outlet, or you may find yourself plugging it into a gas generator, which defeats the purpose. Thanks, William. I hope that helps you. So the next question is from Trayvon. Trayvon wants to know, how do solar panels work? Good question, Trayvon. I used to work in the solar panel industry as an installer, and it was interesting to learn how energy from the sun could be harnessed from glass panels. So here are the basics. Solar panels are made up of an arrangement of what's called photovoltaic cells. The word photovoltaic can be broken into two words, photo meaning light and voltaic meaning current or electricity or electrical potential or pressure. Think of the word volt. So you can think of photovoltaic as meaning electricity from light, in this case sunlight. Just think of those calculators with the solar panel on top. They won't work without light, right? These photovoltaic cells are made up of two pieces of semiconducting material, usually silicon, one on top of the other. One of the pieces is positively charged and the other piece is negatively charged. This process of positively charging the silicon is called doping, in which additional materials like phosphorus are added to the top piece to increase the amount of electrons in it, giving it a negative charge. The element boron is added to the bottom piece to decrease the amount of electrons in it, giving it a positive charge. So when the top piece sits on the bottom piece, an electrical field is produced between the pieces, similar to how opposite poles of a magnet produce an electromagnetic field. So when light or photons from the sun hits the cell, it knocks electrons around and loosens them from their molecular bonds, and the free-flying electrons are captured by the electrical field between the pieces and forced by that electrical field to flow towards metal conductors that line the cell. This flow of electrons has now been converted to electrical current that goes from the metal conductors to wires, and that's how electricity is harnessed from solar panels. Okay, Trayvon, I hope you got an idea of how solar panels work. I always thought it was very interesting myself, and thanks for the question. Okay, so the next question is from Ralph. Can I use a pressure washer to clean my roof? Okay, Ralph, if you have asphalt shingles, it's not recommended that you use a pressure washer to clean your roof at all. First of all, pressure washers are not meant for this job. It's too powerful and can damage the shingles as well as what's underneath them, like the adhesive and sublayers. Even at the lowest settings, the pressure washer won't do much good either on asphalt shingles. So it's recommended that if you want to clean your dirty shingles, use a garden hose spray nozzle. and non-toxic chemicals to clean up the shingles. That should do the job, and it's much safer than lugging around a heavy pressure washer. That being said, if your roof has clay shingles or some other type of hardened shingle, a pressure washer may work for those as long as the setting isn't too high. Do the research on your shingle type to see if it's safe to use one, I would suggest. Thanks for the question, Ralph. Okay, so the next question is from Sandra. Sandra asks, why is my refrigerator not cooling? So it can be a couple of things at play here, Sandra. It can be the evaporator coil, also known as the cooling coil. It's what cools the inside of your fridge by absorbing any heat from the surrounding air. So sometimes these coils freeze up, and you can tell when they are because they're covered with frost. And if there's a problem with the defroster, or I should say the defroster heater, which is supposed to melt the frost on the evaporator coil, the frost can build up so much on the evaporator coil that it blocks any airflow and the fridge can stop cooling completely. Now you can also have a faulty defrost timer. Now this timer switches the fridge between the cooling mode and the defrost mode. So if it gets stuck in the cooling mode, major frost will build up on the evaporator coil and freeze it up, stopping any airflow, which means the fridge won't cool, as I mentioned before with the defrost heater. Now, if the timer gets stuck on the defrost mode, everything melts and there will be no cooling either. Then lastly, it can be the thermostat. Now, the thermostat is connected to the defrost heater, and it also senses when the evaporator coils are cold enough. And then when they're cold enough, it tells the defrost heater to turn on to melt the frost. Well, if the thermostat isn't working properly, it may not sense the coils are cold enough, and the coils may freeze over again, blocking any airflow, and once again, the fridge won't cool either. Okay, Sandra, I appreciate the question. It has to be one of those three components we just talked about, and if anything, you can get an HVAC person to come and look at it for you. Thanks again, Sandra. So the next question is from Dennis. Dennis asks, how do I de-rust my tools? In other words, how do I get the rust off of my tools? Well, there are a couple of ways you can go about that, Dennis. There are a couple of ways you can remove rust. But first of all, what is rust? Rust is also called oxidation, and it happens when iron or steel is exposed to moisture, that is, water or oxygen, over a period of time. It's a chemical process or chemical reaction that takes place over time involving these materials. So how do you get rid of rust? Well, you can use sandpaper, but first you want to clean the tool with a degreaser or some steel wool or wire brush to scrub the real corroded parts first, then apply some coarse grit sanding to it. Another way is to soak the tools in vinegar and salt for a few days. Then after that, you take them out of the solution and scrub them down with a wire brush, and then let it dry. Baking soda is another way you can de-rust your tools. So what you do is you pour some baking soda in a bowl, and you add a little bit of water, and you stir it up and make a little paste of it. And then you apply that paste to the rusted parts, and you scrub it for a little bit, or you just let it sit for a couple of hours. And then you rinse it and clean it and let it dry. Okay, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Calibrate Tools Q&A edition. Let's keep learning, and I'll see you guys in the next one.